Japan is the third largest national economy in the world in terms of nominal gross domestic products and the fourth largest national economy in terms of purchasing power parity as of 2019. In 2019, Japan's labor force consists of 67 million workers. Japan has a low unemployment rate of around 2.4% and around 60% of the population were below the poverty line in 2017. Japan today has the highest ratio of public debits to gross domestic product and of any developed nation, with national debt at 236% relative to gross domestic product as of 2017. According to the Statistical Bureau of Japan, the population of Japan as of June 2021 is at 1125.47 million, including foreign residents. The population of only Japanese national was 123.112 million in January 2021. Japan was the world's 11th most populous country as of 2017. The total population had declined by 0.8% from the time of the census 5 years previously, the first time it had declined since the 1945 census. Since 2010, Japan has experienced net population loss due to falling birth rates and minimal immigration, despite having one of the highest life expectancies in the world. Other than that, Japan is the world's third largest automobile manufacturing country, has the most important electronic goods industry, and is typically ranked among the world's most innovative countries, leading several measures of worldwide patent filings. Facing increasing competition from China and South Korea, manufacturing in Japan today now focuses totally on high-tech and precision goods like optical instruments, hybrid vehicles, and robotics.
For the public policy in Japan, for the fiscal policy, Japan turned to the expansionary fiscal policy in the early 1990s. In the end of the 1980s, Japan's bubble burst stopped and then values plunged. During the years that followed, Japan relied on large-scale government purchase of goods and services, mainly in the form of the construction, spending on infrastructure to prop up a great demand. This spending was scaled back after 2000, but at its peak it was truly impressive. In 1996, Japan spent about $300 billion on infrastructure. The effectiveness of fiscal policy in Japan over the past decade has been a matter of great controversy. We investigate that the effectiveness of Japanese fiscal policy over the 1976 and 1999 period using a structured VAR analysis of real GDP, tax revenue, and public expenditure. Next, for the parts of monetary policy in Japan, the Bank of Japan's law passed in 1998 set price as a primary objective for the central bank. As with our Federal Reserve Act, price stability is not, however, precisely defined in the law. Currently, the BOJ has promised that the zero interest rate policy will be maintained until deflation is brought to the end, a policy that might be demand consistent with the price stability objective. There are two objections to this conclusion might be raised. Firstly, the BOJ's statement seems to imply that the current level of policy stimulus might start to be withdrawn as soon as measured inflation returns to zero. In particular, no explicit commitment has been made to mention inflation at zero, much less at some positive rate in the longer.
Japan has been struggling with inflation for more than 2 decades. The statistics shows the inflation rate in Japan from 1986 to 2020, with projections up until 2026. The inflation rate is resolved using the expense addition of a described tin canister. This tin lot contains things and organization on which the typical buyer goes through cash consistently. They consolidate costs for food suppliers, pieces of clothing, rent, power, media communication, brandishing activities, and rough materials, for instance gas, oil, similarly as government costs and evaluations. Since the mid-1990s, Japan has objected to low inflation. Inflation in Japan since that time has been very low, with extended spells of breakdown obstructed by brief pacing up steep inflation. The Bank of Japan introduced different development procedures to raise inflation. However, in the wake of failing to achieve an upheld development in blowing up supposition bid technique, rate as of now at nothing, the Bank of Japan (BOJ) moved to negative rates in January 2016. Early in 2018, Japan's development come to 1.5%. It made the feeling that the Bank of Japan had squashed the inflation problem. Market joyfully expect the completion of quantitative easing and the chance of higher loan fees. Since April, inflation has followed off again, caused by any opportunity of monetary methodology normalization, despite the fact that since Japan loan costs have effectively been zero since 1995 after an especially expanded period. Assumption for zero expansion and zero loan costs are firmly ready. The Bank of Japan's explanation for Japan's disappearing development shows exactly how troublesome it might be to raise inflation. The Bank of Japan conceded that raising an inflation to the 2% planned target was taking any longer than it expected. Japan inflation rate moved down to 0.6% in February 2020, reflecting decrease in crude petrol expenses and worries over worldwide monetary abasement as a result of the scene of the new virus that causes COVID-19. The Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications says, however, remain far underneath the Bank of Japan's 2% inflation objective.
There are few methods to overcome inflation, and the method that Japan uses are monetary policy and fiscal policy. Monetary policy is used to reduce demand in the economy, leading to lower economic growth and lower inflation. In a period of rapid economic growth, demand in the economy could be growing faster than its capacity to meet it. This leads to inflationary pressures as firms respond to shortage by putting up the price. We can term this as demand pull inflation. Therefore, reducing the growth of aggregate demand, or simply called AD, should reduce inflationary pressures. The central bank could increase interest rates, and higher rates make borrowing more expensive and make saving more attractive. This should lead to lower growth in consumer spending and investment. A higher interest rate should also lead to a higher exchange rate, which help to reduce inflationary pressures by first making imports cheaper or lower price of imported goods. Second, reducing demand for exports, and last but not least, increasing incentive for exporters to cut costs. When the newly independent Bank of Japan started in April 1998, hopes were high that the Bank of Japan would improve its performance and return to what had been viewed as successful monetary policy in the preceding 2 decades. However, after 5 years under the Hayami regime, the Bank of Japan has lost credibility and suffered a serious confidence problem. What happened is that First, the policy board members, led by Governor Hayami, misjudged the economic conditions. Maybe because they were too eager to go back to the normal situation where the interest rate is positive. The interest rate hike in August 2000 was a clear mistake of this kind. Second, the governor and fellow board members took independence literally and refused to cooperate with the government when the economic conditions called for such cooperation. The old Bank of Japan, under the 1942 law, was supposed to pursue monetary policy in order to maximize economic potential. Next, the second method is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is the term used to describe the actions a government takes to influence an economy by purchasing products and services from business and collecting taxes. It also refers to the economic intent behind the decision for how the money is used. They either shift fiscal authority to the central bank under some specific trigger, or they have set contingent rules for changing monetary regimes, or they rely on a change in target from inflation to something more abstract on its own, moving expectations substantially. I am quite skeptical that any of this will work. Instead, I think that the Bank of Japan has basically gotten it right for the last few years. Thank you.
Unemployment is defined as labor force participants being available and willing to work but are not able to find a job. Unemployment is usually measured by the rate at which the number of unemployed people is divided by the number of people in labor force. In order to understand this term, we must know about the thing that would happen to a country if the country had more unemployed workers. A country that has more employed workers tend to have less total economic production, and it will cause serious troubles for the country economy. From the graph, we notice that when the pandemic started at the end of 2019, we can see that the unemployment rate will start to rise from 2.2 up to peak of 3.1 by the end of quarter 2020. The trend fall down by the end of 2020 and starting of 2021. But during the first quarter of 2021, we can see the rate ramp up again to 2.8 as at April 2021. From the data, it is believed that Japan unemployment rate rose to 3 in August 2020, the higher figure seen mid-2017, illustrating the pandemic effect on the country's tight labor market. The figure goes up 0.1 from 2.9 in July 2020, which is the first time since May 2017 that the rate has stood at 3 or higher according to the Japan Internal Affairs Ministry data. From the data, they show that only 104 job openings for every 100 job seekers in August 2020, worsening from 108 to 100 in previous month. With the shutting of the country border, better tourism and consumer spending with hospitality industry hit particularly hard during pandemic. This has made Japan labor market super tight, with employees struggling to hire and the working age population shrinking in it rapidly against society.
Structural unemployment is a type of unemployment in Japan. It's due to Japan's position as a developed nation. We can observe that most wealthy countries will redistribute their workforce to neighboring countries as a plan, so that they can use minimum viable product features, while in other words, to boost profits. Seeing as Japan's neighbors can export components for manufacturing activities in Japan at competitive price, structural unemployment was the type of unemployment in Japan. This type of unemployment does have a bad impact on the labor market, meaning companies can find the most valued supplier rather than making their own. Japan have ways to overcome unemployment. The Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare of Japan plans to extend unemployment insurance coverage to workers who have worked for 20 hours or more at different companies in 2017. In the workforce, there has been a growing trend of unscheduled work since about the 1990s. The irregular unemployment rate has climbed to 35% to 40% in recent years, about 2 times 1990 level. This is related to a growth in part-time workers and the rehiring of the elderly. As a result of instability, many people work for different companies. Other than that, Japan also have other ways to overcome the unemployment in their country. In addition to unemployment insurance, the Japanese government has introduced a national strategy to provide vocational training both to the employed and unemployed people. This method presents an opportunity for people who are unemployed. With a monthly allowance of 100,000 yen and a traffic fee, people who are listed at Public Employment Security Office could undertake vocational education and preparation for a new career. Job applicants, employed workers and college graduates were all given training under the new system. Many women claim that programs like this help them return to work after years of being at home. The system has designed educational programs across the country to help unemployed workers in gaining the skills and knowledge they need to re-enter the workforce, even while ensuring that they will have the chance to educate. Prefectures also have performed vocational training, which will be based on local characteristics and is aimed at city community.
Japan is one of the largest economies in the world, with a GDP with $41,637 per capita. Japan is also a high-tech powerhouse economy in Asia. Evidently, the country is the world's third largest automobile manufacturing country and has the largest electronics goods industry. As of now, Japan focuses primarily on high-tech and precision goods, such as hybrid vehicles and robotics. The inflation rate in Japan is one of the lowest worldwide, as it started to decline in the early 1990s. Japan's economy decelerated significantly and therefore fell into deflation in the sense of a sustained decline in prices, and this deflation persisted for years. The major contributing factor to this low inflation rate was the rapid decrease in the natural rate of interest due to the subsequent financial crisis. The unemployment rate in Japan is lower than that of other major industrial countries, and it showed a declining trend from 1999 till date. The declining unemployment rates were due to labor shortage in certain industries, such as healthcare and construction work. Japan has been facing a critical labor deficit that results from its rapidly aging society and low birth rate. In the year of 1991 until 2001, Japan experienced a period of economic slump and price deflation. This period is also known as Japan's lost decade, and the Japanese economy suffered from liquidity trap and credit crunch. While Japan's economy has begun to show some sign of change and outgrew this period, it did so at a much slower pace than other industrialized nations. And although Japan had stopped the severe economic downturn, conspicuous consumption of these 1980s has not returned to the same pre-crash levels. Thank you so much for watching. I am Nurfitra Nabila signing off this evening. We will be back with you at the same time tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.